Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hey there, MJ friends. So checking in on the sector, we have ACB earnings tonight, and all eyes are on ACB because that's going to have some impact on the major names, which are at a very critical point as far as short-term action goes. ACB right now is up after hours, but it doesn't mean anything because we don't have a reaction yet. Options are implying a 16% move in either direction based on the reaction to this earnings. And even if it's only 10%, that's obviously a very significant reaction. So what I say here is going to be completely changed by what ACB gives us. So the key levels that we're watching on all the major Canadian MJ names, and we're seeing setups very much differ. Canadian MJ, lots of correlation. US MJ, a lot of individual names doing their own things. So we'll start it off with Canadian MJ, and we know the must-hold support is our low of yesterday for most names. And our must-break resistance is the high of Monday for most names. So CGC broke the high of yesterday. It was correlated with the S&P 500 to start the morning. S&P 500 ripped higher, and it left these names in the dust. So the correlation broke, and perhaps that was because the market is sitting and waiting for a reaction to ACB. But either way, right now CGC is at 27.40. We're just over $1 above support, and we're $1 below resistance. We're literally in the middle of the range. And if it's a bull reaction on ACB, CGC has to break 28.41. If we don't break 28.41 tomorrow on a bull reaction, that's a red flag. If it's a bear reaction and we hold 26.36, that's a sigh of relief for the bulls, but break that level and it's here we go again. Because as far as I'm concerned, we still do not have a convincing daily trend change on CGC since 52.74 when we started pulling back. We have this little dinky higher low and continuation move, but I want a distinct higher low and higher high, and we don't have one yet. Cron. So Cron was a daily inside bar today. The bulls must hold 11.05 and break 12.41 to shift the daily momentum. Otherwise, if we don't shift that daily momentum, again, what I laid out for this week, last week in the weekend video, was if we do not consolidate and break the highs of this move by the end of this week, it is disappointing and it's a red flag. And Cron, weekly bear flag. CGC, weekly bear flag. Burden of proof is on the bulls to prove that these are not weekly bear flags. APHA, I stopped out today at break even. I entered yesterday at 693. Morning started just fine. We broke resistance, held my position. We saw a double top, and as soon as we broke the support level down at 695, my stop loss was triggered. And the reason being, I said to myself, okay, I'm only going to hold APHA through ACB earnings if we have a strong close and if we have a solid green day that keeps me comfortable with a cushion of profit from where my entry is. So as soon as we break that level, that's not going the way that I would want, and I don't want to be gambling on ACB earnings by swinging APHA. So I'll happily take my break-even trade and wait for the dust to settle to see where we stand in reaction to ACB. So where APHA stands on the daily, must hold support is 663, must break resistance 714. So here's ACB. Bulls were buying this move today, and after hours we're up over 660. If it's a bullish reaction, 674 and $7 are resistance levels. If it's a bearish reaction, we're looking down at 543 and 538. So it's all about the reaction to earnings for all these major names. TLRY, nice bottom fishing play, held the low of yesterday by 22 cents. Solid bounce off those levels. Bulls must hold 29.07 and break 33.66 in order to see any change in the daily trend. All eyes on ACB. VFF, same thing. Broke the high of yesterday. Could not break the high of the move. Must hold 11.35. Must break 12.53. If we do not, it's a red flag. Hexo. So Hexo has not formed a daily high or low, and Hexo is now starting to show a bit more weakness than other names. It's not correlating as it was with the other names. Otherwise, it would have broken 454 today, and it didn't. And we didn't hold the low of yesterday. So the weekly time frame for Hexo has to be an inverse head and shoulders if the bulls are going to shift this momentum. Let's look at it on a different time frame to smooth things out. 2-day chart. Every candlestick is 2 days here. So we have the left shoulder, the head. The bulls must hold the low of 371 and then break 475 and 495 to confirm this trend change. It's an inverse head and shoulders pattern. That's the only way that the bulls are going to change this momentum. OGI is correlating to what everybody else is doing that we just looked at. Broke the high of yesterday, didn't break the high of the move. Must hold 456 support. Must break 518 resistance. And ACB right now is up at 668, so they are running it after hours. Again, that means nothing as far as what the reaction is going to be, but there are definitely hopeful bulls out there, judging by the significant 6-7% move from the low of the day. Bulls were certainly buying that dip. 8% move from the low of the day. VGW. VGW broke the double top at 356 and saw some really solid follow through. 405 is the key resistance from here. If we break 374 tomorrow, daily consolidation to form a higher low is underway. The bulls must hold 314 for a daily higher low. If we lose the daily uptrend from here over the next week or so, weekly inverse head and shoulders. So let's look at it on a different time frame again for clarity. Let's pull up the 3-day chart. 2 days good enough. So just like Hexo, 2-day chart on Hexo here, 2-day chart on VGW here. If we reject from 405 and pull back more convincingly, we have our left shoulder, our head. If we can't break 405, we need a higher low and then a break of 390 and 405 to change that trend. VGW and Hexo, similar setups in that regard. So that's it for Canadian MJ. Again, we have our clear supports, we have our clear resistances on the daily, and we know that it's all dependent on ACB as far as short-term trading action. S&P 500 is about to hit all-time highs. So you can't have a better operating environment for these names to try and go bullish than what we have right now in the S&P 500, keeping in mind that the FOMC is in 4 trading days from today, and that can have a significant impact on the short-term action. I wish ACB earnings were to come out before this video, but that does not look likely. So now moving on to the USMJ space, and I've made a list, percentage gains of USMJ off of their 2019 lows, weakest to strongest. And CWeb is really impressive because CWeb has been weak over the last week, and it's still at the lead from that major move. But this is just a good description, and what we're going to look at now is TRUL was number 2 down here. TRUL was only up about 13% off its low, and TRUL and IAN were in the same category, and TRUL had a huge day today. So TRUL is acting as a laggard. We've seen so far OH had a bull break, then Cureleaf had a bull break the next day, as did some of these other names, but I'm just saying what stood out to me. So OH, then Cura. Today was TRUL. The question now is IAN going to play laggard and play catch up and have a solid big day of 5 to 10% and try and follow along with everybody else? Or is it going to be a daily bear flag, which we'll look at in just a second, and lead to pretty much peak fear in that name? That remains to be seen, but it's worth keeping an eye on the names that haven't made moves because we have seen laggard action from one day to the next. So now let's go through our regular technical analysis, CWeb, and I ordered them. I'm not looking at CL again because OH is the name to be looking at if you're interested in CL in my opinion, but from strongest or biggest bounces from the lows to the lowest. So CWeb is still very weak. We had the rejection from resistance of 2381. It's weak in the short term. So 2381 was our top. We rejected at 2359, and now we're looking at another lower high, anything under 2359, and it's a gap up open into all profit taking today. $20.94 and $20 are the only support levels nearby. Bulls have to break the daily lower highs to do anything. And ever since 3010, every single bounce attempt on the daily has been a lower high. OH, profit taking, not surprising. Huge day yesterday. No major red flags. Hourly chart lost the uptrend right at the end of the day. We had our high, low, and there's our lower high and lower low right at the close. Only broke support by 2 pennies, but daily consolidation is underway. We're looking for a daily higher low compared to 784. I'm holding my swing positions as long as the daily uptrend remains intact and not at risk at this point of breaking 784 support, at least on this initial pullback, in my opinion. Curaleaf, bull break. Daily trend change on Cura for the first time in a long time. So that's our higher low at 957. That's now the most important support level for September. And we got the higher high over 1033. Didn't have a very strong close, but the hourly uptrend is still intact. We didn't consolidate on the hourly at any point today until the end of the day. So anything above $10 is an hourly higher low. Bulls have 1075 as a resistance, 1080, and 1103. If we lose the hourly uptrend, bulls must hold 957 for the daily higher low. TRUL, huge volume. So I've mentioned in a previous video maybe a week or two ago how the average volume is ramping up. And the last time this happened was a top. So volume climaxes signal temporary tops or temporary bottoms. That was a top. And now we're wondering, is this a bottom? Big volume. And today was over $10 million traded. That's a lot of dollar volume for a US MJ play. And of course, that's only on the CSE. We also have the dollar volume on the OTC ticker. But you're going to be hard pressed to find a name, maybe aside from Curaleaf, that can consistently put up volume like that. Curaleaf's average 20-day volume is about 6 million, roughly speaking. And TRUL average volume is about 5 million. So today definitely stood out. But this is now, yesterday just in that video, I said TRUL and IAN are the dogs of the pack. And now TRUL is leaving IAN in the dust. Next resistance level is going to be up at 1330. Weekly time frame, we're just looking for a lower high. Anything under 1431 is just a lower high. So if we're looking longer term, we need to distinguish these individual names and where they stand on the weekly chart. OH has a weekly trend change as far as I'm concerned, with a little higher low and continuation on increasing bull volume. That's important. The next strongest name on the weekly time frame is CWeb. It already got all of its strength out of the way. We've been consolidating for a month, but it isn't a weekly uptrend. And Curaleaf is trying to break weekly lower highs, even though we did drop down to a lower low right before it. Breaking that 1103 level would definitely be meaningful if the bulls could pull that off. Everybody else, I believe, is just looking for a weekly lower high to be set. So TRUL, 1431. Daily time frame, or I should say hourly, when we lose the hourly uptrend, right now hourly support is 1197. When we lose the hourly uptrend, we're looking for a daily higher low compared to 1036 to keep that uptrend intact. And a good save by the bulls. HARV is a red flag. Why is it a red flag? Because we had great consolidation before today, little uptick in bear volume, and a close at the low of the day. So before today, the odds of continuation were still fairly favorable. Healthy pullback, looking for continuation, if 685 was our low. We didn't hold 685, so now we're looking at something like this. More of an equilibrium setup due to the size of the pullback. If 685 was going to hold as our low, from yesterday's close, we would have only needed 7% for a bull break. At this point, we're going to need at least 12% for a bull break, so the odds of a continuation move go down. So setting up for the potential of a daily equilibrium. GTII, getting a little toppy as well. Hourly time frame, losing some higher lows. If we cannot break 1339 tomorrow and we drop down and break support of 1283, we are then in an hourly downtrend, lower high and lower low, and we zoom out and we look for a daily higher low to form compared to 1117. It's been a while since we formed the last daily higher low. MedMen is giving us red flags. There's clearly a lot of supply of shares. We've had multiple breaks of short-term resistances with zero follow-through and weakness as a response. So even today, we broke resistance of 279. We broke 280 resistance. We rejected from 284 resistance and closed weak. Bulls have to hold 251 for a daily high or low, but this is not the bull break the bulls were looking for, which is why it is the second weakest name as far as percentage bounce off of its 2019 low. And IAN is a daily bear flag. The burden of proof. Look at the bear volume. And we can call it bear volume because of the open of the candle and the close at the low. Bear volume compared to bull volume. So in the last 4 days, these red candles, and again, some of that volume within the red candles is bull volume. Some of the volume within the green candles is bear volume. But just generally speaking, we're talking 1.7 million shares on the red days. And on the 2 green days, we're talking less than 600,000 shares. So almost, let's say 35% of the volume on this bounce as it was on the pullback. So it's a bear flag. For it to not be a bear flag, I need to see the bulls break 333 and make their way up to 350. If we see a bear break tomorrow of 316, we're looking right back at the low of 308. So the question is, can we see a big bull volume spike like we've seen on other names and a move up to 350 for a solid 5 to 10% day like we've seen on some other laggards in this sector? Or are we going to drop down and confirm this daily bear flag and hit a 2019 low when no one else in the sector is doing that? And again, if that happens, it's going to spike fear in traders and holders of IAN. After that, we're looking at 3 psychological. So that's where we stand in the sectors overall. Right now, ACB gave back all of that strength from extended hours. We got up to 672, and we just pulled back 22 cents. 3% pullback from the high. Not surprising because we have no information yet. And there's a lack of liquidity in after hours, and just a little bit of volume is doing a whole lot to move this price all around. So we'll see where we stand as far as ACB is concerned. ACB will likely have the biggest impact, obviously, on the Canadian MJ sector. USMJ, some of these names are not likely to break their August lows. And again, we're always talking about odds, probabilities. What is the probability that C-Web's going to drop 43% and break its 2019 low versus IAN and its 5%? And that's just comparing who's stronger, who's weaker, who has more potential upside. And I don't believe that this space is mature enough where fundamentals are dictating all of this. I think that share supply and share demand, people call it a popularity contest to a certain degree, and it is. At this point in the game, the name that's getting on CNBC like Curaleaf and that's getting its name out there in headlines, and that's the name that's going to attract some attention. So it's popularity contest, it's supply of shares, whether it's through options conversion, if there's extra supply of shares, whether it's through dilution to raise funds for extra supply of shares, that's going to make it harder to move up. So popularity, increasing demand, and overhead supply is increased by dilution and other things. That's what's dictating these moves in this sector at this point, in my opinion. So we'll see where we stand tomorrow on ACB. Have a good rest of your day and do some good things.